Just a quick heads up to everyone. We'll be running a little late today. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes. So that'll be 4:03. Hey, Bridget. At this time, I call the Neighborhood Jobs and Housing Committee to order and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Lupian. Vice President Harris.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Let the record also reflect that we are joined by Council Members Gruber, Martin, Monroe, and Council Member Smith. So we have a presentation today from the Land Bank, so we will just get right to the presentation from the Land Bank.
Okay, thank you very much, Council Member. I trust all members of Council have received a copy of the Land Bank's 2026 Annual Report to Council. All right, well, I am going to be walking you through that. For those who don't know, I'm Eric Frisch, and I'm speaking to you today in my capacity as Chair of the Rochester Land Bank Corporation Board. I'd also like to acknowledge Council Member Lachey Harris and City Council Chief of Staff James Smith, both of whom serve on the Land Bank Board. To my right is Paul Scuderi, who is the Executive Director of the Land Bank. The Rochester Land Bank Corporation is one of the original 8 land banks to be formed in the state of New York in 2013. I believe that makes this the 12th annual report to Council. There are now 31 land banks operating in the state of New York. Article 16 of the New York State Not-for-Profit Corporation Law, also known as the Land Bank Act, requires that the chair of the Land Bank Board make an annual report documenting the projects, expenditures, and administrative activities for the prior year no later than March 15th, which explains why this report is being made to you in February. 3 key highlights, which I'll discuss in more detail, are our Rehabilitate the Dream program, which has sold 3 homes to income qualified owner occupants thus far, with another 3 homes in the stabilization phase. Our first large-scale new construction project, Rochester Roots, which will break ground in the spring on 15 new homes for affordable owner-occupied home ownership on vacant lots in the Josana neighborhood. And our consultants developed and delivered a draft 5-year strategic plan to guide our work for the coming years. The report lists 23 actions taken by the board in 2025. Don't worry, I won't go through all of those. And notes that our treasurer submitted the annual budget and financial plan to the Public Authorities Board in April, and that the Land Bank's annual meeting was held in September, where the annual report and constituent reports and the audited financial statements were approved, Land Bank policies were reapproved, and the board held its annual election of officers. The report describes land bank projects, including the Land Bank Initiative Open Round, for which we were awarded $2 million in state funding for acquisition rehabilitation work. Nearly $400,000 has been spent to date from that. All spending needs to be complete by November of this year. We are certainly on track to do that. As mentioned earlier, our Rochester Roots project will break ground as soon as next month on 15 new attached and detached single-family homes for income-qualified owner-occupants in Josana. The project brings together New York State Affordable Homeownership Opportunity Program, or AHOP dollars, city home funds, as well as funding through the ESL Foundation and NYSERDA. The first homes should be available for sale in early 2027. And we continue to offer homes via our website, 9 properties that were found to be unsuitable for our other various programs have been offered for sale, and 8 of those have been sold to pre-qualified purchasers to rehabilitate those properties and put them back to productive use. With respect to ongoing land bank initiatives, we received a $150,000 land bank initiative operations grant in June that supports staffing and other operational expenses. The Rehabilitate the Dream program, as mentioned earlier, continues to advance. 2 homes sold, a 3rd closing this month. Another 3 homes in the stabilization phase that involves exterior work to ensure that the home is in good structural condition for future renovation. Those homes will then be offered for sale to be rehabilitated by an income-qualified owner-occupant who would obtain an acquisition rehab mortgage from our partners at home headquarters. The remaining rehab work is required to be completed within 6 months of title transfer, and purchasers would be required to live in the home for 15 years, or if they do not, they would be required to sell to another income-qualified owner-occupant. Also in January, the Center for Community Progress was selected to guide the land bank through a 5-year strategic planning effort. The effort didn't last for 5 years. It's a 5-year strategic plan. Given the impacts on land banks resulting from the Tyler versus Hennepin decision, this strategic plan will help to ensure that the land bank stays relevant and impactful going forward for the next 5 years. The draft plan is currently undergoing revisions with anticipation that the final plan will be presented for adoption to the Land Bank Board as soon as next month. The report goes on to document the solid financial position of the land bank as presented in our audited financial statements prepared by EFPR Group. Upcoming activities of the land bank are presented, including continued participation in the New York Land Bank Association and regular attendance at the National Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference, which will be held in Pittsburgh in 2026. In addition to the Rochester Roots AHOP project that was discussed earlier, the land bank has submitted an application to New York State Homes and Community Renewal for their Move in New York program to deliver cross-mod homes for affordable home ownership. We look forward to advancing that in 2026. And the land bank is also looking into the state's block-by-block program as an opportunity to deliver additional new construction home ownership in the city. The land bank will also partner with the city planning office and others to implement the aforementioned strategic plan. Land bank acquisitions are listed on pages, I believe, 8 and 9. And the included appendices, probably the highlight of the entire report, present a number of before and after photos that tell the story of the great work that the land bank is doing in our city. With that, I'll conclude my presentation, and we're happy to entertain any questions you may have now or later in writing.
Do we have any questions? Councilmember Leslie Smith.
Forgive me if you mentioned this, but can you tell me, how do properties come into the land bank to begin with?
Sure, I'll do my best, and I'll rely on the executive director if I get anything wrong. So historically, the land bank has primarily secured properties, acquired properties through the tax foreclosure auction. The Tyler versus Hennepin decision that was discussed, or that I mentioned during the presentation, has changed the way land banks can acquire properties. So these days, we still acquire properties through the tax foreclosure auction, but we must participate actively in the auction, and we also acquire properties on the open market.
Anything else?
And I'm assuming that the draft strategic plan is indicating that the land bank is taking a turn in how they do business, or is it the buy and hold process? What's going to be different overall?
Yeah, well, it's definitely making some recommendations about how the land bank would continue to operate. You know, the land bank will continue to seek opportunity purchases as they come up, right? That works, and we do a good job with that. But in order to ensure that the work of the land bank stays meaningful and increases its impact potentially, we're looking at how we can identify ways to target our investment to maximize that impact. You know, recognizing that it's harder and harder to get control of homes. Looking at other ways that the land bank can participate. The city has a number of vacant lots at its disposal, and so looking at that, for instance, as a way that the land bank could focus and deliver. As was mentioned in the report, we're working on a number of different new construction opportunities, and how can we continue to do that and do so in a meaningful way.
Councilmember Martin. I'm sorry. Councilmember Gruber.
Thanks. What is the land bank's, does the land bank spend any money on marketing, communications, or is all that stuff funneled through the city and NBD?
As far as I know, we do that with the city through a shared services agreement.
Because I'm wondering in part about the one property in your. First of all, great report. I should say that. Let me back up. Great report. I agree the appendix is great. Love the photos. Shows the great work being done. In the report on the acquisition list, obviously the one that sticks out is the one that's the only one that's a private donation, the only one in the southeast quadrant. It's the old cobblestone house. So in this particular case, the city gets the property in part because of long-term negotiation with the owner that, frankly, is in some ways political in nature. It's the only cobblestone house left. There's a lot of attention put on it. So the city acquires it. It goes to the land bank because it's the right vehicle to ultimately hold it. But then I'm curious, like, what prompts someone to do something with it? What prompts us to find someone who's interested in spending some time and money, if not some amount of marketing, communications, et cetera? So maybe just a question, like, what is the theory of that with the land bank? Or is that why the land bank doesn't tend to acquire properties via donation?
Well, with respect to the first part of that question, I'll actually defer to Paul Scuderi for that.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. As you know, you had a couple of interested individuals who were or you kind of funneled to us for that property. At this point, it's still relatively in a holding pattern because of some of the structural and logistical challenges with that building. We're not quite sure how to proceed because of the great expense that would be needed to stabilize it, and as well as the safety concerns that our city engineer and our consultants have pretty clearly documented. So we're still in this kind of holding pattern because of the generally poor condition of the property. If we were to move forward with that property, we would advertise it the way that the city would. We would put an RFP out, we would advertise it in some local publications online and through a general mailing list and try to solicit interested individuals in that manner. We haven't quite gotten that green light clearance yet. Again, our city engineer is very cautious of that building on the recommendation of the consultants that have gone inside and done an interior inspection. So we're kind of hanging on that one. We'd like to do something with it before the weather. Eventually around here the weather will win, and we want to do something before the building falls in on itself. Which is a possibility. You've seen buildings fall down on themselves, so we're very aware of that, and we know that time is not on our side on this. So we're trying to figure out a good path, reasonable and responsible path forward.
Got it. So maybe this is a question as much for NBD as it is for the deputy mayor and our corporation counsel. The two people who you mentioned that I had just introduced to you, there was an article about the Cobblestone House recently. They read it. They said these are two individuals who just emailed me and said, hey, I saw you were quoting this. I'd love to look at the building. I'd love to figure out what I can do with it. Only contacted me because there's no formal pathway to contact the land bank. So I guess the question is, if right now the barrier to people looking at it is the structural integrity deemed by the city engineer, that makes sense. I trust Holly's opinion on what is safe or not safe. But if there's people who want to get in there and look at it and see, would we, the private developer, propose to do something, I would hope there's some vehicle to allow for that, because otherwise it will just keep sitting and probably getting worse in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so I would say certainly there's no intent to let it languish indefinitely. It's something that's on my list to work through to figure out the strategy to move that property forward.
Got it.
And we'll be doing that. So it definitely, we appreciate the couple of referrals, but I think, more broadly, just getting the word out there as to what we plan to do with the property and a strategy for that. Mindful that to restore it historically is a significant investment, but it is certainly one that we remain committed to pursuing through various sources that might be available to do that.
Okay, I will wait to hear what the plan is. The last thing I'll just say is a comment, not a question. But last year, I think when the land bank presented, I recommended the potential of adding to the board with more folks from the private sector, particularly from the real estate development sector. I think we had a brief conversation about it in the committee meeting. I would just echo that recommendation again, that having some individuals who have worked on properties like this from the private sector would probably be a good thing, and I think there's folks who would love to serve on a board like that.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is something that is discussed in the strategic plan and something that we'll be discussing as a board in 2026.
President Melendez?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one question. As the strategic plan is in its final draft form, I guess, is there any contemplation or conversation potentially of in that strategic plan, and you don't have to answer today, but maybe in writing, around whether or not the land bank should be or could be more involved in controlling the housing stock in the market? So I know the city of Syracuse, as an example, has more of a, I guess you could say, a property management arm. Instead of properties all going to auction, there is a connection to the land bank that I think is made directly. And I just wonder if that might be an opportunity for us, even if it's not short term, longer term, to look at this.
Yeah, I can address that, Council President. You bring up Syracuse, which is a different entity than Rochester. As you probably know, their taxing system is a little different than the city of Rochester, whereas we take properties through our in-rem process. The Syracuse foreclosure is a little bit different. The Syracuse Land Bank is named as the default recipient of that action, so they get control of those properties. So they have a much larger inventory in the city of Syracuse land bank, which is necessary for them because the city does not have a real estate division. So they need something that kind of manages properties that fall into foreclosure that are distressed in that nature. The land bank would certainly like to control more properties, and we've made a lot of efforts over the years. As the Deputy Commissioner has mentioned, the Tyler versus Hennepin decision has made it a little more challenging for the land bank. We have worked with the city treasury and the budget office to provide some means for the land bank to still be a participant, an active participant. So we are still able to acquire properties, not to the extent that we were several years ago, but we are still able to acquire properties at the auction. And we've been more aggressive in the private market, trying to pursue some private acquisitions. So we still want to be impactful. But to answer your question, we absolutely want to be able to control more properties. We're trying to find a means to do so.
So if I heard you correctly, it sounds like it's a legal structure that we're different than the city of Syracuse for some particular reason, and maybe I'd like to unpack that a little bit more at another time, just to understand it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna follow up on that and ask that Corporation Counsel give us something in writing explaining the differences between our land bank and their bank and why theirs works the way theirs works and what we would have to do if we were interested in modifying ours to work in a similar manner. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Monroe.
In reading about the focus revitalization that you work to do in neighborhoods, I'm wondering if any of this is also still an outgrowth of the old focused investment, the FIS?
No relation to previous FIS efforts.
Okay.
Okay. So one question, two properties. 131 York Street, the Grow Project, and 61 Lime Street, Grow. Says that both of these items are two families. They're being sold to Rochester residents who are first-time investors. Why first-time investors as opposed to first-time owner occupants? Or is there a difference in? Is there a difference? Am I making a difference without a distinction?
They are both owner occupants
Okay.
who would then also have an apartment that they would lease.
Good. Just wanted to make sure. So both of these are being sold to owner occupants. Outstanding and wonderful. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we thank you for your presentation, and we'll move on to the legislation.
Thank you.
Okay. Introductory number 39, sale of real estate. Authorizing sale of real estate. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and now we vote. All in favor of introductory number 39, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Introductory passes. Introductory number 40, resolution approving appointments to the Rochester Environmental Commission. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and now we vote. All in favor of introductory number 40, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Introductory passes. Introductory number 41, amending the municipal code, section 90-16, with respect to certificates of occupancy. Just for clarification, we are doing this because it is a state requirement to do this. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct, Councilmember.
And so there is no opportunity for amendment in order to stay in compliance with state law. This is what we must do.
Yes, this is what we have to do to be compliant with New York State Public Health Law 1377.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice President Harris?
Yes, thank you for providing this information. It's very helpful. Is there any way that you can provide maybe a map or, some type of indication of what areas of our city are still high risk for lead?
There should be a map that was provided to you, and I'm hoping it came late this afternoon, but it should be.
Oh, okay.
At your
Thank
desk.
you.
Okay.
And Councilmember Monroe?
So if I'm reading this correctly, it seems that there will be an additional workload to make sure that these additional lead wipes are done.
Yes, that's correct.
How is that going to impact our code enforcement unit? I know that previously they had problems with being understaffed, and I'm not sure if that's continuing.
There are still a significant number of code enforcement officers. We did add additional officers a couple of years ago, but you're 100% correct. This is more work for the number of staff that we have. We do believe it's doable, but it is more work, yes.
And so whatever inspector is doing a certain area, if a certain house pops up that needs the C of O with the lead wipe, they do it, or do you have certain specific inspectors that do the lead piece?
All of the inspectors are lead certified, so they all have the capability of doing the inspections.
Okay, thank you.
So, council members, we did receive. Yeah, council members. I don't know if everybody's got it, but we did receive some clarification on item number 41. It's in your purple sheets, and it lists out the impact of this legislation on numbers of units. It doesn't break it out by quadrant, which I didn't ask, so no grumble there. But on the back side of that, there is a map with an impact area. So I just encourage you folks to take a look at that, because this is something that we must do. I'm looking to move this forward at this time, so I'm going to ask for a motion in a second.
Move it.
Councilmember, I believe we have to amend this item.
Yeah, well, you're right. We do have to amend it first. So thank you for bringing that up. I do see it is right here. All right. So we have an amendment on the floor. The amendment is so now if everybody takes a look in the actual ordinance, we are making a substitution where instead of saying rental dwelling, we are changing it to dwelling unit throughout the document. So I need a motion and a second to amend the item.
I'll move it.
Second to amend.
Moved and seconded to amend the item, and now we vote on amending the item. So all in favor of amending the item, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to amending the item, please say nay. Okay, the motion to amend the item is successful. And so now we vote on amending now we vote on the item as amended. All in favor of the item as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay. Before we conclude, we have a couple of things. We have two other things we need to do. Council member Lupien, would you like to record a vote on introductory number 39? Okay. So what is your vote? Okay, thank you. All right, so we've got that. And President Melendez, I believe you'd like to say something about the homelessness report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To the council and to the administration, we released a report yesterday on homelessness in the city of Rochester. I'm expecting a lot of dialogue amongst this, not only the report, but in the community about it. And I just wanted to take a moment to say that in our legislative memorializing resolution packet this month, there are a few items pertaining specifically to the report. Obviously not expecting everyone to have a chance to read all of that today or sign it today, but my hope is that if you have any questions, once you get a chance to look at that, as well as look at the report, that we can have some dialogue about that. But I'm excited to release the report. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us as a community, not only in the city of Rochester, but in county government, state government, federal government, to take some actions. And as you read the report, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I was just asked, Councilmember Lupien, I thought you were here for it, but they're not really sure. We just want to make sure. Would you like to record a vote for introductory number 40? Oh, okay. And your answer is? Okay, cool. Thought so. All right. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
We'll give 1 minute before we call the Budget, Finance, and Governance Committee to order, but certainly folks can get in place. While we're getting the screen set up, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll of the Budget, Finance, and Governance Committee.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Vice President Harris,
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Washington. And let the record show we're joined by the rest of the members of council. We are going to start this afternoon with a brief presentation. This is a small legislative packet for the BFG committee. Two of the introductories are related to cybersecurity, so I thought it would be useful to get a brief presentation from our IT department. Director Fisher and Joe is here to provide some information. It's probably going to be a bit of a one-sided presentation because we're probably shouldn't ask a ton of questions about cybersecurity on the record, but certainly we can have follow-ups from the administration in writing if that's the best path forward. So with that, I will turn it over. Joe, am I turning it directly over to you? Director Fisher, you want to say anything to begin, or am I passing it to Joe?
Just introduce Joe as my Chief Information Security Officer, and so he's going to do the presentation today.
Wonderful. Welcome, and thanks for your time.
Joe Rossi.
Yes, Joe Rossi.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for having us. So the first thing we wanted to cover was the top cybersecurity risks that other cities, mid-sized counties, kind of the same type of government entities around our size face today, the strategies we use to address those risks, and then the services.
Excuse me for a moment. Is your microphone on? I'm sorry.
Is that better?
There we go.
And then the strategy or the services that the state provides us today that they started providing in 2022. So the top 4 risks that we would love to call out is first, the ransomware threat continues to impact cities. Whether it's attempts to access data, take it away access, and then either come back to us and say, hey, not only did we deny you access to your data, we have a copy of it, and now we're either going to release it to the public if you don't pay out. And this is the type of time that you'll see us work with Corporation Counsel and not only work to see what we can do to protect ourselves, but also put this language in our contracts, because our vendors are also vulnerable to this as well. So this is both not just a city issue, but also a vendor issue of who we partner with. So a lot of times you'll see this appear also as a vendor compromise. So you'll see a notice come out and a vendor will say, we're unavailable for 1 to 2 weeks, and then you'll start seeing cities and school districts say, now we are unable to provide services, and that's why it's kind of a 1-2 punch. The other thing we're seeing is emails that are pretending to be either another government entity or ourselves. They're getting better with emulating branding or appearing as a trusted source. And these are coming out not in your typical large scale, I'm pretending to be a package notification, but now something that may emulate one of you or may emulate a vendor that you've worked with for 5 years, and you're sitting there saying, this seems like someone that I am working with, and this does look like an invoice or a payment that I should take action on. The last area, and this is something more around nation states external to the U.S. They're targeting our water systems, our transportation systems, and their objective's a little different. They come in, they want to lay dormant, and they want to wait for a national security event to unfold. So that's where the tactics change a little bit, and the adversary we're dealing with is different than the earlier ones. The earlier ones, they typically want to come in, cause damage, do it very quickly, and get out. So some of the strategies we can use to address these risks, one is limit access to any sensitive files. We monitor 24/7. You know, the city operates. We always have public safety and public work units out there. So we're monitoring 24/7, and that's where things like multi-factor authentication come in, that extra step of please prove who you are. So, you know, if you're visiting, if, you know, you're going out on a trip and you're trying to access your email, that's why sometimes that extra step will occur, while in your office it won't, because we're trying to keep a balanced approach and not always have you go through those additional steps. On the software and vendor side, this is where contract language is our main defense, because, you know, we're putting our trust in that service being provided by them. And so if we can put in the language demanding that, hey, if you go down, you need to come back in 1 to 2 days, that then gives them incentive to put in more controls to ensure that their businesses aren't impacted. Around email messages, that's where employee or user training comes in. You're our best defense, and that's where reporting emails, being suspicious, taking that extra 5 to 15 seconds and saying, is this something I really should take action on? That is our best defense from that perspective. And then anything around water systems, segmenting them, monitoring them, and then developing plans that respond very quickly is usually the best defense for not just us, but larger entities as well. When it comes from the state, they provide 2 groups of services. The first one is what they provide all year round. So this is something that they say, here's free software that we bought and we're going to give to all of the counties, to all of the cities. And they started doing this in 2022, and they've been expanding it throughout the past 2 to 3 years. And that's one of the transmittals we submitted, was part of their purchasing rules is quantifying that agreement. The second transmittal ties into the right side of the slide, which is asking for a service and then getting in line, and it's about a current 6 to 9 month wait. And then they'll come in and either evaluate our plans, they'll simulate an incident and ask us questions and walk us through what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then also look at our policies and say, hey, this is what we did in the state, this is what you could do here at the city or the county level, and this is, you know, what you may want to prioritize first. So that's the 2 kind of groupings of service they've been providing to us the past 4 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rossi. Much appreciated. Want to turn it over to council members to see if folks do have questions. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the legislative business before us. Introduction number 42, authorizing an addendum to an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of endpoint protection response services. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved.
Second.
And second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Introduction number 43, authorizing a cybersecurity services agreement with the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Introduction number 44, authorizing an amendatory agreement related to the Mosaic Artwork and Oral History Project at School Number 22. There are 2 disclosures for this item, one from Council Vice President Harris and the other from Councilmember Lupien, as they are both employed with the school district. They are only required to disclose, and they may participate in the discussion and the vote. Any questions, comments, or concerns on 44? Councilmember Pardon? Councilmember Patterson.
So the transmittal says that originally the idea was that you're going to build a wall and do the mosaic, but there was a line of sight issues regarding safety. So where is the mosaic going now?
Thank you, Councilmember. The mosaic installation will now be going at School 22.
Okay, so it's going to be on the wall at School 22?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be next to the wall.
One of
yes.
the walls. Okay. On the wall, or so like not so is it on the wall, or is it going to be something different? What is it going to be?
I'd have to get back to you. I'm not exactly sure. It's either mounted right in front of the wall or mounted to the wall.
Okay.
I can't remember the
Okay.
exact details.
Right.
As opposed to the standalone wall, which was
Right.
the original concept at the park.
It would be. Is there some? Obviously, you don't have the mosaic laid out, but if there's some manner of rendering, mosaic goes here with some structure, which wall it's going to be on, that would be really nice to know.
Sure. Yeah, we can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? President Melendez?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to ask if this at all dovetails with the plans for the park, the civil rights park at all, or is this completely separate project?
It's completely separate.
Is the mosaic already decided on and everything's moving in a particular direction?
I believe the artist that was hired, who's been working with the community to come up with that, is more or less come up with the design already. Now it's a matter of figuring out the logistics of installing it physically.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'll move it.
It's been moved. I need a second.
Second.
And second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Instruction number 45, authorizing an agreement related to the physical agility test for the firefighter civil service examination. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Councilmember Chair Gruber. I just got a question. I see that this is for the examinations that was administered December of 2015 to 2019, of December 2015 to November 2019 and January 2023. I got a question. Is there a plan to change the physical agility test and how it's administered, or any revisions to it?
Good afternoon. I'm going to have Tom Miller speak to that because there has been some discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so we are currently working with the consultant just to basically take a look at the tests that we've been administering all these years, just to decide at this point in time if we need to make any modifications for the next holding, which will be on April 25th.
So those modifications, when you look at the modifications, looking at what they do around the country, nationally, or just in this state?
Just within the state and within our internal department, kind of looking at data to see what sort of attrition rate we've had at the academy and what of that attrition rate might be related to physical fitness.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I wanted to know, I don't know if it's on the same lines of what Ms. Harris was saying, but I wanted to know, what are we doing to support folks to pass the exam?
So the fire department is offering both did offer classes both for the written portion of the exam as well as the physical agility portion. So they did roll out a pilot program this year to provide assistance for candidates who are seeking assistance for those items. So we will be analyzing that program after this testing cycle, just to determine if any changes need to be made to the program or if it was a success, continuing that moving forward.
Thank you.
Vice President Harris?
Yes, and I appreciate you explaining this. If you can explain to the council and those who's viewing this, like, difference between, so we can understand the state agility test and how it is nationally. I don't know if you can kind of package that as much as you can, so people can understand the difference.
Yeah, so ultimately to graduate the fire academy, you need to pass what's called a CPAT examination. It's a very strenuous examination, basically simulates certain firefighting related activities. Previously, that was part of the written examination process, so you'd pass the written exam and then take the CPAT. We found that there was an extraordinary number of people actually failing that agility test because a number of those activities you need to do to pass that agility test can be learned activities. So one of them is dragging a dummy so many feet. Well, the first time I ever dragged a dummy was at the test. I probably wouldn't do so well, but once people have practiced in the academy, we are finding that they are able to pass that at the end of the academy. So that's why we did remove that as part of the testing process, but did want to have some type of physical agility test just to make sure somebody had a minimal physical threshold walking into the academy. We have trainers in the academy that can get them up to speed in order to ultimately pass that CPAT examination.
Thank you, thank you. And so with that change, that we've been able to get better candidates, actually more candidates, and then more folks who are having challenges with that initial be able to practice and eventually pass the academy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And finally, would you be able to, like, when you guys come up with those results, would you be able to share that with council?
Yeah, we can definitely provide you guys a look back to when we started the agility exam to basically show you kind of what the pass-fail rate has been throughout the course of that examination.
That would be super helpful. Thank you.
Council President?
Yes, just one follow-up question. In terms of the administration of the firefighter civil service examination, it appears it's about every 4 years. Is that going to maintain moving forward? Is that typically standard?
I mean, we were on a 2-year cycle for a number of years. We did move to a 3-year cycle recently, partly because we had a large enough list left to be able to hire from for a new class. So I guess at the end of a 2-year cycle for this exam, I guess we'll do another examination or another look back to see if we would need to extend the list or if another exam would be required at that point in time.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if no further questions, I'll take a motion in a second on 45.
Move it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Instruct number 46, amending a New York State Education Department Library Construction Grant Agreement. There is one disclosure for this item for myself, as I am the council liaison of the Rochester Public Library Board. I'm only required to disclose this information, and I may participate in the discussion and the vote. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There's no further legislative business, but I will say, as we saw at the beginning of the year, if folks from this committee or this council generally want to see presentations prior to any subject matters in particular, just send me a message so that I can get them on the calendar. Thanks, and that concludes our work for today.